You would not talk to your kids the same way you would talk to your wife or your coworker. You would not tell your kids, "Hey kids, it's very important that we optimize the nocturnal workflow in order to enhance productivity." What? Your kids would probably slack off for the rest of the month just out of spite. Your audience is the judge and the jury. It doesn't matter if you're speaking to one person, if you're speaking to a whole room of people. You always have to do your homework and figure out who it is that you're talking to. And this works particularly well when you're engaged in an argument. How many times do we get into an argument and all we're doing is fire hosing them with all this information that would appeal to us? We just assume that, oh, if it appeals to us, it must also appeal to everybody else, right? But no, everybody doesn't think the same way. We all have different ways of processing information. We've all had different experiences that we filter all of the information that we receive through. Without acknowledging that, we are always going to miss the target when it comes to influencing or convincing our audience of anything. I mean, one of the most relatable illustrations of this is talking to someone who is using terminology and words that they don't even seem to understand themselves. Imagine you see someone trying to explain a recipe to their grandmother and they go, "Initialize the thermal processing unit to 350 degrees and then introduce the batter matrix." Your grandmother would probably think you're casting a spell on her. We have to be mindful of who it is that we're talking to. There are these subtleties that make such a huge difference in how much impact we can make in our conversations with other people. If only we recognize them, if only we were conscious about them. It's one thing to neglect customizing your message because the person you're talking to is a stranger, and it takes a little bit more work to get to know that person. What are their values? What do they care about in order to be more targeted in your approach? It's yet another thing if you actually know the person and you still neglect that, right? Most of us do this out of ignorance about how important it is. This is something that really takes a lot of conscious effort. It takes a lot of practice. And the only way to improve on it is by consistently reminding ourselves that we need to be aware of who it is that we're dealing with. The message is not the only thing we need to tailor towards our audience. Sometimes we can even keep the message the same, but simply by changing the package, we make it a little bit more digestible for our audience, right? And this change can be in the form of our volume, our tone, our mannerisms, right? There's a lot of things that goes into it, even our facial expression. If you go squinting at your boss in the same way you would your lover when you're trying to seduce her, you're probably going to get yourself an early retirement. I've read a lot of books on how to be persuasive, how to communicate better, how to give better speeches, and I still have a lot of work to do, but this is probably the most under-recognized one. Next time you enter a conversation with someone, let the foundation of your thought process be, who is it that I'm talking to? How am I going to get through to them? How do I tailor my message to best appeal to them? And I assure you, you will go far further than you think. Do not leave that to chance. Sometimes we might stumble on the right message. Sometimes we just know the person enough that the right message and the right way to approach it comes to our minds. But all too often we neglect to do this, all because we're not being conscious about it.